Welcome to the Magnetic Marketing Podcast. Today we're talking about wealth, thinking, and creating prosperity with Lee Milteer. Now, if you listen correctly, this is going to be an episode that you're going to remember, and I want you to pay attention to why it is that you will remember it. As she is describing her spectacular story, and spectacular cannot truly be more of an understatement, listen to the golden nuggets that she drops along the way of why she is doing exactly what she's doing as she teaches you the different pieces that have helped her gain her focus, which has been wealth and prosperity, not greed. Each of the pieces of her story today are going to hit just right and on purpose. She is a well-crafted speaker and author. So listen in for the universal hints. Make sure that you're paying attention to not just the information, but the emotion that moves you as we jump into wealth, thinking, and creating prosperity with Lee Milteer.
I don't think there's anybody that has had a bigger impact in the field of direct response than Dan Kennedy.
The legend of Dan Kennedy should be ignored at your own peril.
They're not really lessons, they're kind of laws that you live by.
Dan opened my eyes to what small business marketing looks like.
Dan teaches strategic direct response that is timeless.
His ripple effect touches people who don't even know his name.
The world as we know it was changed because Dan Kennedy became obsessed with marketing.
Welcome to the Magnetic Marketing Podcast with your host, Dan Kennedy.
I'm Lee Milteer. I'm very happy that you're here. This morning, what we're going to talk about is about wealth thinking. How many of you have studied prosperity? Okay? A couple of people. 3 people. All right, we're going to talk about wealth thinking, and my real goal for you today is to be uncomfortable. And the reason I want you to be uncomfortable is because you can't learn anything while you stay in your comfort zone. Does that make sense? So can you give yourself permission today? This is going to be a very intimate day, the next couple of days. You have to give yourself permission today to step out of your existing comfort zone of this is the way I've done things, to opening up your mind into an entirely new paradigm of how you can create wealth for yourself. And it's not just wealth with money, it's wealth with the quality of life that you have. This is about working. See, most coaching is all about hearing. That is, in the least effective way to change your life is to hear something. Isn't that true? Because we hear things and we don't really take action on them. This is about a combination of introspective thinking, meaning if you don't think and go inside, you cannot change your external. I've been friends with Dan Kennedy over 20 years, and a lot of people are always like, I'm confused, Lee Milteer, Dan Kennedy, what makes you two great friends? Dan and I are both incredibly inner focused. We're very introspective. We analyze things to depth. When he and I have conversations, we will analyze and pick apart the most minute details because it is the distinctions that you make in life about the smallest things that shift and create your vision. Does that make sense? So today, about what I'm going to teach first thing this morning particularly is about getting into your head about some of the beliefs that you have about creating wealth. So before I do that, I am going to tell you my story, a little bit about myself. I know some of you know me well. Chris has been in Peak Performers for a long time, and Everett and I are personal friends and have been friends as long as Chris and I, and they know about me. But a lot of you don't know who I am. I've been a professional speaker, an author, a coach for over 20 years. I was born and raised in a little place called Chuckytuck, Virginia, which I grew up on a farm ranch 1.5 miles from the nearest secondary road. My parents believed that basically I should grow up, marry another farmer, rancher, have a bunch of kids, White House, picket fence, dogs, you know, the whole thing. Nothing wrong with that. Very nice life if you can find it, okay? That little fairy tale didn't work out for me. Growing up in a very isolated environment was a great advantage for me because I had no references that you couldn't do things. My parents were very strict about, if it's sunny, you should be outside playing. Your butt shouldn't be inside watching television or anything like that. And so I was alone a lot, grew up on a ranch with horses, animals, I've been riding a horse since I was about 4 years old. I literally, at 7 years old, would ride 20 miles away from the house, very independent child, firstborn. My father wanted a boy. Surprise. He basically raised me as a boy. So I didn't get any of the programming of someone is going to take care of you. I got the program is get your ass up and work. There are things to do. Very average student in school, hated the whole confines of school, hated rules, hated structure. Anybody identify with any of this? Kind of born entrepreneur, because when you live on a ranch and a farm, it's not that you have a schedule. It is what has to be done. And there are no excuses. The animals have to be taken care of. The weather determines your life. So you have a schedule, but you really have to be keenly intuitive about what are the priorities in life. Very average student in school. When I started working very young in life. By the time I was 12 years old, I had 37 people working for me. Nothing fancy. 37 people who worked on farms, I was the foreman of a field hand crew, and I know that's, for most of you won't understand what that means, but my father had big 5 farms. And when I was about 12 years old, I came home from school one day, and my father said that one of the main foremen had gotten very ill, and we had 37 guys up in the fields waiting to be told what to do. And you all know that only 10% of the world are leaders, right? The rest of the world are followers. They're waiting for someone to tell them what to do. They have no initiative and no ability to make decisions. So he told me to get my horse, pack my rifle, put it on the horse, get some water, and ride up to the field and take care of those 37 people. Now, that was my first real chance to realize that leaders aren't necessarily born. I do believe I was born a leader. I know how to lead. I intuitively know that. But leaders are also made, and it's also from environment and circumstances. And most important thing that you lead is yourself, and how much you do whatever is really necessary every single day. So at 12 years old, I literally have 37 people, and the only motivation I could give them was they could rest or water. There's no extra money, there's no bonuses, there's no vacation, there's no health care, there's zip. It's called, the only thing you have, as my father said, is the ability to motivate people to get to a point they want to be. So my nickname at the time was One More Row, because literally it's 110 acres of fields, and what we did was chop peanuts, which means you take a hoe and you go around the plant to remove all the weeds so the weeds do not choke out the plant so they can grow and thrive. Now, that's a great metaphor for the way we live today. In the sense, we're plants, and there's a ton of weeds around us, and they're sucking the life out of us. And often we let them get so ingrained into us, we don't know that they're pulling all the life force out of us. And we let that weed get too tangled up in ourselves. So again, as a child, I was forced to be an adult. I really didn't get to be a kid. So now, at this time of my life, I'm giving myself permission to be a kid. But it was a great boot camp learning experience on how to be successful. That circumstances don't mean anything. Environment cannot best you. You have to rise to the occasion. So I did that for a while and was extremely good at it, and I got bonuses if my team crew got through their fields on time. So I learned at 12 years old the importance of making money. Always worked in my life as a teenager, whether it was selling in some little department store. I could outsell anybody about anything. No meant nothing to me. because my father said no every time I asked him anything. Can I go to the dance? No. So you learn to be a big negotiator. You learn to be a good influencer. You learn to have why the benefits of me doing what I want to do. So I had all this great background just starting my life. And I'm telling you this for not only so you get to know me, but how many of you have kids? Okay, our society now is all about pampering these kids, giving them everything. Let me tell you something. You couldn't do anything worse if you tried, because you ruin your children if you give them everything. They have no value of money. They have no value of hard work. And when you take away all the conflict that children have, the problem is they will have no coping skills for the future. Does that make sense? So I had all kinds of coping skills. So anyway, long story short, got through. By the time I was a senior in high school, I had learned to play the game. I could out-talk, out-negotiate almost anybody. I became a rock and roll disc jockey at an all-female station. I kind of fibbed to them and told them I had graduated. And literally was working in an adult environment with a big rock and roll station. So I, was still going to school, but being a rock and roll disc jockey, no money in that, but lots of fun and lots of, prestige. But where I learned success was at the station. They were looking for salespeople. Now, I didn't know at the time we were the last rated worst radio station there was. However, I went out and sold. The very first day I went out and sold, I sold 3 contracts. And when they came back, the sales manager was so shocked. I mean, I thought they were going to make me president of the station or something. The reason I was so successful was because I had learned something that is crucial for all of us to learn. Information does not move people. Emotion moves people. And all of us get so head trippy that we forget that you can talk all you want to. There's too much information in the world already. People are reading you on a regular basis. On a subconscious level, people are reading all kinds of things about you. Do you have integrity? Do you know what you're talking about? All kinds of things. So when I went out to sell, I was so enthusiastic and so excited about making money that I sold all this stuff. Before I knew it, I literally was being solicited by all the competitors because, who is this gal out there, beating our butt, selling all this radio time? So I have radio experience. From there, I actually married the radio station owner. A real upward mobility move, I thought at the time. And we started a company called Background Music Service of Tidewater, which was, I'm sure you've heard of Muzak. Okay, well, we were a competitor, and we put in sound systems. I could walk into any building and tell you how many speakers you needed, what kind of amplifier you needed. And the most important thing I learned about that is I had no electrical or engineering background. And when I got hired for this job to do this, I said, I can't do this. I have none of this experience. And my boss at the time said something that totally influenced my life forever. He said, if you study this for 2 weeks, you will be 99% more educated about this subject than anybody else you'll talk to. Isn't that interesting? 99%. And he said, and if someone asks you a question that you really don't know, we have engineers you can drag in with you. But we don't want to drag in the engineers because they bore people to death and they will kill the sales and they'll get too technical. He said, because people don't buy from information. They buy because they like someone, they're bonded with someone, and they feel the energy of it. Because energy is wealth. Does that make sense? I'm telling you the story. You're hearing all the lessons in the story? The reason I'm telling you the story is we learn more from stories than we do information. My father's nickname when I was growing up was Hollywood. And the reason it was Hollywood is because he was this unbelievable storyteller. Now, I can tell you growing up, I just thought it sucked. your father telling stories, just you're bored out of your mind. As an adult now, I realized that was one of the greatest educations I could have ever had. He mesmerized people. He held their attention. And he was very entertaining. And so, again, no matter what you do, and we're going to find out what everybody does, your story in life is so valuable to you, not only in marketing, but bonding with people. Something I will say today, whether it is I love animals, whatever it is, will bond with someone else. And you're always looking for touch points to bond with someone else, to do business with them. Are we on the same page? Yes, okay. From the rock and roll disc jockey to the salesperson to the owning the background music service company, I did very well. I killed my competition. I went out. I was very enthusiastic. I believed if I could sell it, now here's belief systems. If I could sell it, my engineers could install it. Now, I had 4 engineers work for me. Their favorite thing was, we can't install that. There's tar on the roof. We can't get through. There's concrete walls. Now, we did things like put in sound systems for airports and shopping centers. I never went for mom and pop businesses. It is harder to sell a mom and pop business than it is IBM. I went for big chains of grocery stores, big chains of drugstores. I went for shopping centers, airports. I went for big stuff. I've always done that my entire life as a speaker. I started off as a speaker, never a local speaker, never wanted to be a local speaker, don't want to speak locally. Always go for the big gigs. The big gigs have the money. They are less trouble than the little gigs. So, as a background music service person and trying to get people in, one of the things that I had to deal with was obstacles, the engineers. So I used to say to them when they would come back and say, we can't install it. I can sell it, you guys damn well can install it or find a new job. Because I went and sold it. I found that solution. It's your job now to find the solution of how to get it up there. And you know what? In the 8 years I owned that business, not one time could we not install it. Does that make sense? So obstacles in life are really other people's perceptions. They're not really true. Now, one of the things we're going to do in implementation coaching is really deal with the perceived obstacles that you think you have because of the thought process that you're in. Shortly, my husband got killed on Christmas Eve. We were building a restaurant. Long story short, very short. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm way past this. This is a long time ago. The guy who had the restaurant next to us decided he didn't like that we were taking back the parking that we had, and he hired someone to come to our house on Christmas Eve and kill my husband, which he did. And I just happened to luckily be out of the house at that moment, or I would not be here today. Now, I'm not telling you that story to feel sorry for me. I did not leave the house for a year, deeply depressed, seriously out, could not function. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So today, when anything goes wrong, I have this reference in my life of, can't be as bad as that, Can't be as bad as that, because that was really, really bad. Now, from that, I went through this period of, who the hell am I? I mean, really, who am I? I mean, why am I on earth? Why am I here? Why did this happen to me? You're not going to get anywhere with those questions, by the way. So from that experience, what happened to me was this awakening of, you're not just here on earth to just make money. You're not here to impress people. You're really here because you have something to add. As most of you know, I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not a religious person of any particular brand, but deeply spiritual in the sense of we all have a reason for living. And that when you can combine your purpose in life with your business, you will increase your ability to make an impact and influence Earth greatly. So it doesn't make any difference, what your personal beliefs are, other than I do want to share with you that there's a reason you're here, and there's your influence and how you can help other people can be great, and that, that's an important part of your life. From that experience, I decided that when I look back in my life of what I was really good at, I knew I was good in sales. I really started analyzing, okay, where am I going to go now? What's the next step for me? And I remembered something that happened to me when I was in the 7th grade, and we have these little hints, I call it universal hints, of what you're fabulous at life. My universal hint for me when I was in the 7th grade, our homework assignment was to write a speech. And I spoke on horses because I loved horses. I have a passion for animals. Personally like dogs and horses better than most people. So if you understand animals, you'll understand that. They're much nicer on a daily basis. I gave this speech, and my teacher was named Mrs. Lane, and she was in the back of the room. And after I gave the speech, there's this little applause, and then she's totally silent, and then she finally says, "Oh my God, you finally do something well." And it occurred to me, wow, I do something well. That hadn't occurred to me before, because, you're just living your life. Now, I didn't even remember this, until this time of introspective, of really analyzing where am I going in life. In high school, the only time I excelled at anything, because my favorite classes were recess and art, I did excel in art because I just had good times there, but I excelled at all the contests in speaking. I won every contest. Even though I was terrified, I had no experience. My nickname as a child was Motor Mouth. I would talk you to death to get what I wanted. There was no ending until you gave me what I want. So I started looking at that, and I realized, well, hey, maybe there's a little gold mine here. Because your natural, if you can find a way to capitalize on your natural abilities, that is your gold mine. Now, it doesn't mean you don't tie it in with education and learning and polishing the diamond, but that you've got to find that special little core of yourself that excels, that when you do it, your best comes out. Has everybody found that? Raise your hand if you've found that little thing in yourself. Okay, well, hopefully in this, in our coaching program, that we can assist you in finding that, because that turns the key. It starts the engine. It revs up your life. It turns on every part of what I call your wealth attraction. You see, when you actually start doing what you were born to do, so to speak, what you came to do, whatever your special mission is to do, and people think, well, my mission was, I'm showing up. Well, that may be true. But if you can find that little key, your whole life will totally flip, because you won't wake up in the morning with the have to. You'll wake up in the morning with the want to. And there's a huge difference. And I study wealthy people. I study success. So I started studying about successful people. And I literally spent 3 years reading every book there was on prosperity. Every book I could find on wealth building. And I'm not talking about investing wealth building. I'm talking about who became wealthy in life and how did they become wealthy and what was it they did to become wealthy. Because I wanted to become wealthy on my own right, in my own way. And that was a very clear decision, because I grew up poor. I mean, we were land rich, by the way, just didn't know it. But, not a lot of money going with that. And everything I heard growing up was, we don't have money to do that. And I remember wearing secondhand clothes from my cousin who I hated. And I hated her taste in clothes. And every time I had to wear her clothes, I was like, ah. And I remember going to the prom in this god-awful pink outfit that I would have burned on the spot if I could have. And I made this conscious decision. This sucks. I am not going to be poor. I am going to find a way to have financial independence. The other thing that I observed as a child, that women in my mother's era had such a disadvantage because the programming of history was a woman's place. And let me tell you, I just didn't fit in with that at all. I didn't want to do any domestic work, didn't want to learn to cook, didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to wait on anybody. I was like, my father used to jokingly say, you better find a damn good job, because you are not wife material at all. And the other thing he said to me was very beneficial, because remember, I'm giving you lessons in all this little story. He said, is never be average. Average people are boring. There's a bazillion of them. If you always have to be unique, be yourself, use your own personality. He says there'll be people who love you for it, and there'll be people who hate you for it, and it doesn't make any difference. You have to be authentic to yourself. And he said the authentic person will be remembered. The person who is fake will always be a fake. Now, and these are great little lessons that you don't get until you're in your 20s, because you think your father's just a pain in the ass, okay? You know, it's just, you know, like all you people who are parents understand this. So I studied for all this time to become a speaker. I studied, I remember watching Johnny Carson every night so I could watch his timing. I could watch how he delivered jokes. I went to every seminar I could. I did everything I could to become a professional speaker. In the interim of doing that, I actually got into commercial real estate because I was so good in sales. People always offered me jobs. And I've realized in life, just because people offer you things, don't be flattered. Don't be ever flattered, because they're not offering to do something for you. They're trying to get something from you. They recognize talent in you. The only thing you want to be aware of is if someone offers you something like that, is they see talent in you. You have to ask yourself, do you see the same talent in yourself? You with me? So a lot of times we get offered things that we blow off and not realize there's a message there. I call them universal messages. And the message I got from lots of people was, you have value. Now, I grew up with poor self-esteem, didn't know that I had value, the whole programming stuff about being female, blonde, southern female, okay? Is a little deep meaning in that? So each and every one of us has got to get past all of our past programming. And in this coaching group, we're not just going to do the top layer of stuff, which most coaching groups do. We're really going to go deep, because you have to change internally your gears, your programming, your software to really have external, real big success. Because there's a lot of people who have short-term success. They change their marketing, they do something different, they position themselves, and they'll get some success. But it's usually short-term success. They burn out pretty fast, and then they got to go find something else. When you change the inner part, the software, when you really get into the deep guts of things, and you make those adjustments there, it may not be fast success, but it's long-lasting success. And that's what we're looking for: independent, long-term wealth. Not short-term, fast pops, but long-term wealth. So from commercial real estate, I learned very quickly I hated commercial real estate, and that I went in it for the wrong reasons. I went in it for greed, because it was at a time where people were making massive amounts of money in commercial real estate. And so I get in commercial real estate. I'm with the 46th top commercial real estate company in the United States. Serious big bucks, long-term money people. I learned very quickly I do not like going to the city and looking at sewer plats. I did not like, this is not my personality. Yes, I can do it. So I stayed in commercial real estate just long enough to sell a couple of office buildings to make that money to get the hell out of there. Now, in the commercial real estate, what happened to me was, while you're trying to get known in your hometown, I did something most people weren't doing, is I was going out and speaking. So any kind of club there was in my hometown, and I used to call them animal clubs, any kind of clubs, I would go out and offer to teach them something. And so I would get a following of people who knew who I was. And so that's how I was able to sell those commercial buildings. But while I was doing that speaking, I realized I'm in the wrong profession. I'm supposed to be in the influence profession. I'm not supposed to be in the greed profession. And we have to be very careful as people because we live in a world of greed. Now, I'm telling you, it's great to be wealthy and prosperous, but it's a whole different thing to come from greed, because greed will always be your downfall. Does that make sense? It has definitely been mine. I have acknowledged the times in my life I have made decisions purely based on greed. They never work out well, and I'm never happy. So now when I make decisions, of course I look at the financial advantages of them. That's important. Is it worth my time, energy, and effort? But am I also looking at what is my deep intention and my true motivation? And Dan and I talk about that because we've been coaches for a long time. We watch people start things because they see somebody else making a bunch of money. And they don't know what else to do with their life, so they jump. We jokingly say that flea jumps on another dog and stays for a short time and then jumps on another dog. Nobody gets traction in life constantly switching positions because life is an accumulative effect of things. I jokingly call it karma. There is karma for everything you do. There's cause and effect. So I did not like commercial real estate. So here's how I became a professional speaker. One day, after we closed an office building, which I sold to 4 doctors who had to have 4 lawyers and 4 accountants, and it was the most arduous thing I'd ever done in my life, dealing with all that. Blessings to you lawyers here. The cherry on the cake was after the closing, one of the doctors met me to pick up the keys and expected sex for return because I had gotten a commission. I could not stop laughing. I said, wait a minute, let me get my recorder out. Could you repeat that? Because I'd love to call your wife and play this recording. Now, this was just the universe of saying to me, you're in the wrong profession. We're always getting hints. See, here's the thing you have to be aware of, and this very introspective thinking here. When you're doing something and there's nothing but walls and obstacles and insane, crazy things that are happening, you're in the wrong place. Okay? Can you remember that? You're in the wrong place. You can't buck this. You can't fight. So I realized, look, not only don't like doing this stuff, finally I sell this office building and this is the reward I get, that I'm supposed to have sex with this guy because I got a commission? Good luck with that. I'm in the wrong place. The next day, I go to the printers. I have cards printed up, and it says, Lee Milteer, professional speaker. I'm in the speaking business. Okay? I hadn't gone to school. Nobody tapped the little fairy dust over my head and gave me permission. Nobody said, you can. But the universe kept telling me, you're a good speaker. You are a great storyteller. That was the feedback. So I'm telling you this because there are many stories there are many lessons in these stories, and you've got to start having the skill of awareness when you hear people say to you, you're good at something, you're naturally talented, you have a skill at this. Anything like that, it's the universe telling you, it's a hint. Pay attention to this. This is a skill level you must start to comprehend. Are you with me? And see, most of us blow it off. I remember the first time somebody said, you should be an author. Geez, I couldn't even write a term paper in high school hardly. I'm going to be an author? Yeah, good luck with that, dude. However, I heard it so much that finally one day, the light bulb goes off. Well, I can read books. I'm a great reader, and, Writing is really nothing but a bunch of sentences connected in paragraphs, and they have these things called editors. And, I could give it a shot. And what really made the difference was opportunities come to you, and many of us turn those opportunities down because we don't value them. I don't believe in accidents. I believe things happen. So one day I get this phone call from this guy named Bob Friedman, who owned a publishing company called Hampton Roads Publishing. And he said, I'd like to take you to lunch because I think you have a book in you. I'm laughing. Yeah, good luck with that. Where would you like to meet for lunch? Free meal. Okay, let's go. Contacts are everything. Knowing people is everything. So I go and have lunch with him, cheap Chinese restaurant, because he's a cheap guy. It's okay. He takes me 5 or 6 times to lunch. Next thing I know, I've signed a contract for a book I'm writing. That wasn't really in my even mindset that I would ever do that. From that, people started calling me and asking me to do television interviews. By the way, I was smart enough to go and PR myself. Nobody else is going to PR you. If you don't promote yourself, nobody else will. I did a local television show. I was just an interview. That person who produced that show said, wow, you have television talent. We are looking for a television talent. Would you like this job? Sure. Well, we have one little problem. We have no budget. We can't pay you. So I ended up doing a television show literally for a year for free. However, let me tell you what I learned from that. I learned all about producing. I learned about power. I learned about leverage. I learned about how to get guests. I learned all the backstage stuff. I learned how to be really good. It's just like when I became a professional speaker. I did 157 free speeches before I ever literally got paid because I was pretty lousy in those first, 100 or so. I was just lucky somebody would listen to me. I learned that if I did things free and really cultivated my skills and my abilities and talents, and that what would happen is I started to attract that work. I also believe that everything you do in life has a cumulative effect in your attraction level for wealth. So I'm sharing this with you because we all have these illusions about how did someone else become successful. It's never some big straight line. You start at the bottom and you go to the top. Oh my God, I wish that were true. It's this zigzaggy, off into the left field, whoops, that's not working, back on course thing. It's always moving. So from doing this television show, I literally got asked in Canada to be an interview on a show. It was called the Deanie Petty Show. It was the #1 show in Canada. It was a celebrity show. I went and did this interview, and they liked me so much, they asked me to become a regular of the show, which I did for like 5 years, every Sunday from Virginia Beach, Virginia. I flew to Canada, taped 3 days of television, flew back to the United States, did speaking everywhere. Life has this wild adventure, and I do think life as an adventure. So here we are today. And it's a lot more of the story, but I'm going to end at this point so we can find out who you are. But wherever you are, you have a great story. Most of you haven't valued your story. Most of you haven't really figured out how to leverage the story. And we want to leverage your story as much as possible. My first book was originally titled Feel and Grow Rich because I wasn't smart enough to know that wasn't a good title, okay? I hired some guy who promised to do, people promise a lot of things. He promised to give you a best-selling title. He basically promised to take my check and cash it, okay? And so the first title was Feel and Grow Rich, which came out in hardback. Did very mediocre. One day we got a letter in the mail from Napoleon Hill organization saying you're in copyright infringement for Feel and my publisher was like freaking out. Oh my gosh, copyright infringement. And I said, well, how many books do we have left? And he said 90. I said, great, let's give those away and retitle the book. We retitled it to Success is an Inside Job. We're in our 7th printing. So, titles do count. all of us in my book, I told my story a lot. And so the feedback that I get from that first book was, I loved all your information, but I really loved your story. Because what makes us human is what connects us. And I can come up here and I just saw this brochure the other day, and it was all these different speakers, and all they talked about was, oh, I took this company from a, nothing company to X zillion dollars, and this and this and this and this, and, you're like, and I have this and I have that, and it was all money-based. And Dan and I talk about that, and I've chosen, and if you'll notice, he's chosen this too, never to advertise yourself from the money-based thing, because it's all perceptive. See, what $1 million means to one person is squat money to somebody else. So when you're basing your career on like what the earning thing, what happens is you may be very successful, but to someone else that is not a significant figure. And Dan's direct quote to me was something about, I never do that because even though I'm very successful and very wealthy and I don't have to work and all that stuff, he said, a lot of people, if they really knew the true numbers, would think, well, that's not enough. That's not big enough. And the other thing that I'm sure you know, we live in a world of bullshit, and more bullshit. That just because people say things doesn't mean it's true. The first time I went to the National Speakers Association, I came back depressed. And the reason I came back depressed is because I was broke. Because it took me a long time. I really starved getting started. I mean, so starved, I sold my house, my jewelry, my stocks, and I was dating for food practically. And so I went to the National Speakers Association, and I remember this clearly. Everybody was, I got like 300 dates a year, and I'm selling $3 million worth of product. This was so incongruent to me, because I'm looking at their shoes. You're wearing really crappy shoes. How could you be making all that money? There's just this bullshit factor that we live in that isn't, I have a real ability to sense it. Just this, you're trying to impress me and I'm not buying it, and we all have it. I can feel bullshit. I can feel con people. And so I try to take this integrity road, and maybe I won't get there as fast as everybody else who advertises, but I'm going to get there. I will be honest with you today that I have successfully not inherited any money. Nobody ever leaves me anything. Everything is, I earned it myself. I have achieved what I consider wealth. I have no debt at all, not a penny. I live on a beach house in Virginia Beach, Virginia, on the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay. 4 years ago, I bought $1 million lot next to me in cash that has a picnic table on it, which I'm in the process of finishing off the plans with an architect. I've picked out the builder, and we're starting the new house. I have a very small office building that I bought that was in a horrible condition, which I paid at the top dollar 5 years ago that you could possibly pay, and revamped it. I have cash in the bank. I consider myself wealthy. I am in a happy marriage. I have a dog and a cat. I am healthy. I do what I love. And there's always more that one can have, but I consider myself wealthy. And so today, you've got to start asking yourself, what is true wealth to you? And that it's not about just making the numbers. It really is about your life and the journey. And because my husband got killed, it changed my paradigm of wealth. In other words, you can have success and wealth, but if you don't have anyone you love to share it with, or your life is not good, or you're sick, or things like that, it's not really wealth. My life has been hard in the sense that I've worked really hard. I used to do public seminars, 100 a year, from 9 to 4, in 100 cities a year for 6 straight years. Now, this was like I would be a waitress today before I did that again, okay? But I learned to speak in any environment through the most difficult people. Everything happened. People died. People went in labor. Sprinkler systems went off. Alarms was off. Crazy people showed up. People would stand on tables and go, "Oh, you're from the devil." Well, we're taking our break now. Guards. Having 500 people show up and the support staff go to the wrong hotel and it's just me and 500 people. Anything and everything from, every flight is down to me getting on planes. You know what a bank plane is? Those little puddle jumpers that take bank receipts from one city to the next. There's no one flying, and I'm talking my way onto an airplane. The guy doesn't know me. To get to the next city, driving all night, speaking the next morning at 8 o'clock with no sleep, because the show goes on and you're it. Speaking with strep throat, sick, dying of fever. It doesn't make any difference. The audience doesn't care. They paid their money. You're supposed to show up. So we all have this adventure. And so our world is what we created. So you have a great background on me, probably more than any audience that I've ever shared, because I find when the new GKIC, Betty, called me last June 1st, I had retired from Peak Performers, which Bill Glazer and I had done for 4 years, and I thought, well, that was nice. That's done. Next. And I was doing other things. I did not anticipate this happening. This came to me. And success does come to me, and this is one of my belief systems. And I want you to adapt this. Write it down. Success always comes to me. My other belief system that has changed my life is I can learn anything I want to learn. Now, I don't do very well with what I don't want to learn, but I can learn anything I want to learn.
Thank you for listening to the Magnetic Marketing Podcast with Dan Kennedy. If you love hearing in on these lost Dan Kennedy talks and speeches and calls, then please let someone else know about this podcast. That's how you can help it to grow. And the more it grows, the more free Dan Kennedy we can bring to you. Also, Dan would love to give you the most incredible free gift ever, designed to help you make maximum money in minimum time. Now, this free gift comes with almost $20,000 in pure money-making information for free just for saying maybe. You can get this gift from Dan right now at nobsletter.com. Not only will you get the $20,000 gift, you're also going to get a subscription to 2 marketing newsletters that will be hand-delivered by the mailman to your mailbox each and every month. One from Dan Kennedy and one from me, Russell Brunson. To get this gift and your subscription, go to nobsletter.com right now.